All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Christine Gallagher. You are tuning into She's Got This. And I'm so glad you're here, especially because today we have a very special guest. If you've been listening to the podcast, I haven't really done like guest episodes. I've done a lot of just like riffing on my own. And so I'm kind of like going out there and bringing my people to you. So today we have somebody who has been in my life for, over a decade at least. My dear friend, she is a great friend of mine, and we've come up in this crazy online industry, Jenny Fenig. And so let me tell you a little bit about Jenny before we jump in. So Jenny is a women's leadership coach, and she helps with you getting confident and focused and, of course, paid, doing what you love without burnout. And she's been a very successful business leader for over 2 decades. And she offers coaching and consulting and counseling to bring out the best in her clients. And she is really passionate about taking people on a journey upward and inward. I love that. And she's also the guide at Chief, which I know is a more recent happening in her world. But Chief is interesting because it's the fastest woman-founded company to get like this unicorn valuation.
Unicorn status valued at
that's huge.
$1 billion.
Yeah. So she is doing, using her skills in creating leadership development and connection experiences for senior executive women who are committed to their growth. And she is also the recipient of the Silver Stevie. I love that because back in the day, it was a Coach of the Year, right? You got this. I had gotten the bronze one year for Coach of the Year, which is a very exciting thing. So yeah, we both got the Stevies going on. And of course, the author of the book, Get Gutsy, which I remember reviewing for you way back, like when it first came out, Jenny.
A few lifetimes ago. Yeah,
it seems like forever ago. But she loves to celebrate her clients as they sell out their online programs, lead retreats, book speaking engagements, corporate contracts, all that good stuff. And she is a great storyteller, which is another reason I'm excited to have her here. And she's always doing speaking gigs and being on podcasts and things like that. So Jenny came from the corporate world, and she was a corporate workshop leader and motivational speaker. And so now she takes her coaching, and when I first met Jenny, it was more just like, coaching like business owners, but you've kind of like expanded since then. And she has spoken to teams at different organizations, like lots of ones you've heard of: Samsonite, Mitsubishi, Logitech, Barnard College, like so many cool things. And when she was in corporate, she was a PR executive, and she also produced business conferences. And she lives in the woods in the Berkshires, and I've visited her several times. It's gorgeous up there, and you love running, riding your Peloton, drinking tea, and spending time in nature. I've also had some of her great tea at her house. Yeah. And cheering on her kids. We'll be sharing Jenny's social. And if you follow her in social, she's always got something, especially those kids with the sporting events, traveling here and there. So yes, welcome Jenny to the show.
Yay! As you're reading that, I'm like, yeah, that's me. Wow. I've done all those things.
That's me. Wow.
Yeah,
that's a lot.
Yeah. Wow. Exactly. Yeah. I know. It's what is that? It's like grateful. What a long, strange trip it's been.
Oh my gosh. I know.
It's been a ride. I'm still on it. And I'm very interested to see what happens next. Yes.
Yeah, we're still here. Like we are, I always joke, like we're kind of like veteran. It feels like we're veterans in sort of this online marketing world. And I just wanted to mention as a side note how Jenny and I first met, because it was such a snapshot of the time. Like it was like, I think I met you in like 2010-ish, somewhere around there. I think you were pregnant with your second at that time. And you and I were at a conference in Las Vegas. And I think we had known each other sort of online and connected that way, and then met in person. And back then, like, so it was an Allie Brown event. So anyone who's listening, Allie Brown, I just have to say, like, she was like the, like back in the 2008, 2009, that was like, she was it, because the online marketing world was very male dominated. And, there's still a lot of bro marketing stuff out there too, but like, Allie was like, she was it. So we met at one of her conferences, in Vegas. And I think you were actually, she did one the year before, and I think we were both there, but we didn't meet, and we met like the second one she did in Vegas or something like that. But yeah, like
That was it.
crazy. Yeah.
That was it. Yep.
Yeah.
Good memory. I can see the room in my head right now, the ballroom, and
Yep.
yeah, it's like I said, what a long, strange trip it's been. It's just so interesting watching all the evolutions for the industry, for you, for me, for the people we've met, and then just really contemplating, yeah, where do we all go from here? What is the next step? What do you want to be doing? And I mean, I think this is a lot of what I help my clients with, what you help your clients with, because I just want to normalize. It's not easy. It's not easy. It's freaking hard. Anyone tells you it's just easy all the time, they're selling you something. It's probably a program or product that says It's not. It's quite challenging, because even if the work you find it may be easy at that time, there's something going on in your personal life that's very challenging or whatever. And so it's this whole picture, the total package that you have to consider. And I really delight in that. I think being able to see our place in this world and how we serve and how we want to do things, where we want to live. Like, you've moved, and I remember telling you, Christine, you got to move. Like, move. You're living where you're not supposed to be. I could see it.
Yeah.
And so it's great. It's great that we can have this conversation and just talk about, all the things.
Yeah. Yeah. So many things. And that's why when I was thinking about doing this interview, I'm like, where to even go? Because there's so many places we could go. So many things have happened and so many changes. The industry is continuing to change. And I just thought it'd be great to start out by having you share a little bit with people about your journey, because you did start in corporate. And then you became a yogi. You did the yoga teacher training thing, and then you became a business owner. And so can you tell us a little bit about that journey, what that looked like? And also, especially, you had a similar track to mine where it was like signs kept coming up that, as you say, wouldn't leave you alone. And you knew you kind of had to seek a new path. So can you share more about that?
Yeah, it would be my pleasure. So I look back, and I've been doing a lot of thinking about my life. There's just been a lot happening in my world where you think about life, you think about where have I been and where am I going and how much time do I have left? Like, we don't know all of those questions. And I just want to plant that seed now, because it's a huge part of my story and my evolution is, and I know you've experienced a deep loss too, Christine, when you were a young girl. My sister died when she was 12 and I was 16. She had cancer, and that really, that moment, that experience, it was a whole journey. She was sick. She had brain cancer, but her loss has literally been a huge piece of my entire life. Like, it's not something that just happens and then, I just go on and do these other things. No, it has stayed with me. That was in 1994. It has literally, like, every move has been influenced by that. I find it fascinating. I didn't know that was going to be the case way back then when I was this teenager, just like, okay, I got to keep going to school and figure these things out. But that absolutely has guided me. It's guided all of my steps, whether I was conscious of it or not. And now I'm much more conscious of it. So I knew at that time, if I didn't just kind of keep my head down and keep going, I could really get lost. Like, I could really get messed up. And so that's what I did. I just head down, keep going. I didn't feel any of that grief because I didn't have the space for it and I didn't have the capacity. I've since learned it will catch up with you. You need to deal with that because it will deal with you. So that's a whole other conversation. But I really just kept, like, head down, be the best student, be the best leader, do all the things. And I did. And so all those choices, having grown up in Florida at that point, eventually led me to New York City because I wanted to be around the best. I wanted to be the best. I decided to pursue public relations as a career, and the capital of PR was in New York City because that was the media capital of the world. And those of you who don't know a lot about public relations, PR people work with the media. And back then it was just the gatekeeper media. It was, the magazines and the newspapers and the TV stations. Now it's like social media. I mean, everyone's media. But back then we didn't have social media.
We didn't have that.
the media was the media.
Yep.
And so you had to go where the media lived, and it was New York City. So that's where I went. And I was doing it, I was living the life. I was working hard. I was playing hard, going out, doing the things, having the big clients. I was traveling globally. At one point I had a global client that I represented, and it was interesting for sure. But that voice that I learned to listen to, I learned to develop that relationship with the inner voice. And the death of Julie helped that for me. Was to recognize I'm not alone. Sometimes we experience loss and you think you're alone. I'm alone. I'm the only one who's ever gone through this. I'm the only one who knows what it feels like to lose somebody. If you lose your best friend, or you lose your sister, you lose a parent, you have this, it's almost like the part of grief is I'm alone, and it's a story that we tell ourselves. And so I went through that for quite some time, but I just started listening to that inner voice because I learned that I couldn't ignore it. It just kept knocking on my door, and it would be telling me, hey, you're working too much. You're not taking care of yourself. Or, hey, I know this looks good on paper, but you're not really happy. It was all those kind of messages that I was getting that eventually I started trusting instead of pushing away, because the pushing away wasn't working. I was like, I'm pushing as hard as I can. And they keep coming back. So that led me to leave my career in public relations, which was kind of nuts, because I thought I was always going to do that. I was working at this major agency doing the things, giant pieces of business. I was this young 20-something who was just making my way.
And on the outside, it's so glamorous.
It looks so great. We were having celebrity events, and I had expense accounts, like all this stuff. And I just couldn't keep doing it. I couldn't keep doing it. And so I jumped ship and I went to a completely new industry I didn't even know existed. It was called conference production. Like, who knew? And I landed there, and I landed in the marketing and business strategy division. I really like brands. That's what I was doing in PR. I was representing brands, like known brands, like M&M's was one of my clients. Viagra was one of my clients. These were big time brands. And it was interesting. And we had, a lot of resources, big budgets, things like that, super smart people. And I love all that. But when I found myself in this new place, it was like a doubling down on my love of brands and strategy and business. Like, I'm really fascinated by business. I'm fascinated by deals. I'm fascinated by projects and creativity. And I got to really flex all of that in that new role. Again, working around really bright people. And in that particular position, I started making good money. And so that was like my first taste of, this thing called profitability, and me getting a cut of that. I like that. I like getting big checks.
Right. That's fun.
I wasn't getting that PR. I was like scraping by, we were getting leftover sandwiches from the client meetings. They'd be like, extra sandwiches. And then you're like, oh, sandwich. So then I started making really good money in this work and learning how to spot opportunities. Like, my job was to do research with corporate executives, asking their biggest challenges, what was keeping them up at night. And then I would turn them into these multi-day events that they then would pay a premium to attend, and sponsors would pay to get in front of this audience to be able to promote their work, their services, their products. And I found the whole thing just fascinating. I really did. And I was very good at it, and I started making great money. But the same thing happened there. That voice came on and said, excuse me. Yeah, I know you've had a good run here, but this situation is very toxic. And a lot of the leadership was showing me how I didn't want to be. And I couldn't see how I could really have the next chapter of my life there. I could feel like maybe kids were on the horizon. At that point, I'd gotten married, and I just had to listen. I had to surrender into that. And so what you mentioned earlier, I decided, I don't really know what I'm going to do next, because I already left PR. I don't want to keep being a conference producer. Like, I learned quickly, if I don't want to keep doing this thing, I could go someplace else, but I'm still doing this thing. I'm still doing the same thing. I'm just in a different location. And so what's the point? I look back on my life, and I have been a pretty astute decision maker. Like I can see things. I see things that other people maybe aren't willing to see, or they just aren't able to see. I see them, and I am a risk taker. I'm pretty bold in my decision making because I dealt with the hardest thing, which was the death of my only sibling when I was 16. So I learned early, if you're waiting for life to be fair, if you think you have 100 years to do all this thing, you're in for a rude awakening pretty quick. That's not how it works. So I'm not going to wait around for all the conditions to be perfect and for me to have no fear for me to make a move. I'm not going to do it. And so I learned to just bet on myself pretty early on. And so at that point, I just said, there's something about yoga that makes me feel good. When I do yoga, I make better choices. You know, I had a pretty abusive relationship with alcohol for a lot of my life. I had dabbled with, you know, recreational drugs, like while also looking perfect on the outside with being very good at all the things that I did. So it was this interesting part of my journey. So I decided to sign up for yoga teacher training, and that cracked me right open. And towards the end of it, I finally got the courage up to quit that job, you know, to quit a 6-figure, very lucrative position, safe. Quit, didn't know what I was going to do next, but just said, hey, I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to open up space in my brain. That's something I've learned too, is if your brain is like maxed out and you don't have any space in there to actually think or work through something or like feel anything in your body because you're so locked down, you're going to live a really small life. And so that's what I did at that moment, is I just opened up space. And it was soon after that that I discovered that coaching was the thing and I could do it. And so then I signed up for a coach training, and this is where I've been hanging out ever since. It's changed forms a lot. I mean, I think coaching, it's like a term that a lot of people use. There's a lot of coaches out there for sure. And gosh, there's a lot you can do with it. And that's what I think that's what I love about it so much, is that there's a lot you can do with it. There's a lot.
Yeah. And it has changed so much over the years. I mean, it's like when we first started out, Jenny, I feel like coaching, I mean, it wasn't new, but it was just like, it wasn't so saturated. It wasn't such a, you know, and now it is. And this is part of like rolling with the punches of being a business owner, is like the industry changes, the market changes. Like, so, what I love, I mean, there's so many things I love about your story, and especially just appreciate you always willing to like go there and just be like, this, you know, was my story. And like, there was times that were just not so pretty. And just to touch on what you just said, one thing that was vivid about your story that I remember you telling, or me hearing early on when I met you, was this time when your sister passed away. You know, you were 16 and you were kind of, I just remember you telling me a story of this sense of like, you were just disconnected, you know, like you were like the party girl thing. Like you and I kind of have that both in common in our past. Like, you know, we could party. And I just remember you telling the story of, you know, when your sister passed, and how I think, you know, you had said like you were hungover, or you were, you know,
I was.
And so there was a lot going on there, which I think, you know, you've said is you were cut off from it. You couldn't handle that at the time. And so one of the things that you and I have talked about a lot, again, because we're both very open about this, is just like mental health and like dealing with all of those things. And so one of the things that we have in common, I did an episode on this last year, was the modality EMDR. And EMDR is something that not a lot of people know about, but it's essentially, it's a modality for helping to clear trauma. And so I wanted you to share a bit about sort of how that journey happened with, you know, dealing with the grief and all the things that you had kind of shut down. Because you didn't deal with it necessarily till you were already very established in business, you had your kids, and like, how did you come to that place where you were like, I need to really do something about this, like, and not just talk about it?
Yeah. Thank you for asking that question. And I love being able to talk about this. I think a piece of my mission is normalizing these conversations, because let me tell you, everyone's fighting their own battle.
Yes.
I don't care how they look on the outside. And I think if more people would, here is, okay. And be real, I told Christine, and I will tell your audience, I had my session with my therapist earlier today. So like, there's usually something that comes out of my mouth or hers. I'm like, oh, I got to write that down. And she said, like, that's it. And so it was like, when we don't do the work, we end up in the same place.
Yeah.
We end up in the same place. And so
Yeah.
when I went to college, yeah, I mean, my sister died. I didn't go to therapy. I was not in a grief group. Like I probably wouldn't even open, even if it was offered to be like, that's ridiculous. And so I just, yeah, did the thing, work hard, play hard, like party, try to not feel, the only thing, don't feel, just don't feel.
Yeah.
If only if you feel anything, you can
Long-
only feel good. And certainly not this, because this feels terrifying.
Yeah. It's too
And
much.
so, yeah, it was just too much. It was too much. And it makes complete sense. Like I look back and I have so much empathy for that 16-year-old girl. And I think about where I am now. It's literally by the grace of God, lots of miracles, lots of angels who have helped me get here. You know, I haven't gotten here on my own. It's been a team effort for sure. So it was when I got to college, I remember I was like, I think I need help. Like I need help here. I mean, I'm looking good on paper. I was on a full ride academic scholarship. I kept it the whole way. You had to keep a certain GPA to have it all 4 years. And I did. Like I was able to pull all this stuff off. Like I was able to pull it off. I'm still able to pull things off. I'm like, how did I pull that off? But I remember this flyer was up in one of the buildings, and it was like a student who was pursuing a master's or something in therapy, or looking for people to work with, like they need subjects, I'm like, I took her number and I'm like, and we did, that was like my first therapist, was this person who was in training at my college at University of Florida. And I remember just thinking, it's so fabulous having somebody just listen to me, and they're skilled, and they're not going to hold it over my head the next time, like, or spread the rumor, like, oh, she said blah, blah, blah. It was like a liberating. And that was that. And then, I eventually get to New York City to start my career. And what I learned, well, New York was such an incredible place. I have so much gratitude for that city and the role it's played in my development. What I learned, if you didn't have a therapist in New York City, there was something wrong with you.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm from New Jersey. So Jenny and I are like, Northeast girls, like there's just a whole mindset, but yeah, everyone has a therapist.
It's like, okay. And so one of my coworkers, I worked with one therapist, you have to find the right fit. I was like, it's no. And so she told me about her therapist, and she had dealt with some hard stuff, early on in her life. I started going to her therapist, and it was a match made in heaven. And so that right there, his name was Dr. Rich. And we did tremendous amount of work together. Death of my sister, parents, like we all have stuff. Okay. And a lot of it's our childhood. Let's just let's just okay. So that was quite liberating for me. It also helped me. I had a real fear of commitment. I had a hard time trusting men. And so helped me with that. At that point I had met my husband, and I mean, I unpacked so much shit I had been carrying on my back. I didn't realize I was carrying it. And again, this is a lot of what I help my clients with. I'm like, take off the pack, get things out of there. We all have to carry our own packs, but you don't have to be weighted down with these boulders. Some of y'all carrying boulders around. Yeah, you don't need it. Get it out. So that's what that work was very much dedicated to trusting my own voice. I worked with him when I finally quit that job, which at the end was just a toxic environment for me. I made a shitload of money. I was doing well, but I need more. Yeah. I was worth more. I needed a different environment. I couldn't be there anymore to have the kind of life I wanted. And so working with him gave me the courage to use my voice, to trust it, to know I could say no, to say, hey, no, or I want this, or I want that. And for many of us, we might have grown up in an environment where we were taught that was not okay. Right. You weren't able to ask for things. No. You just take what you could get.
Yeah. Yep. And be happy with that. Yeah.
Just be happy with that. And that voice inside me said, but you're not happy. And you actually don't have to be with that, because that's actually not okay. Those are scraps. Those are crumbs. You deserve more. And so that stretch with working with him was really about my voice, advocating for myself, learning to trust people, but not trust everybody, to be discerning about that. Yeah. To not give your trust away so easily. So I think that really helped me really step into who I was as a woman, and then eventually as a wife. And then the EMDR piece came into play once I moved out of New York City and we relocated to where we are now in Western Massachusetts, the Berkshires. And I started, I had my first kid in New York. I now have 3 kids. for those of you who are parents or maybe have had certain experience where you just things get kicked up, stuff was getting kicked up for me as a parent. You really remember your childhood. You really, things come up and it's like, oh, and certainly the death of Julie, I hadn't fully processed that. And that's what EMDR really helps you do, is process. And so I heard about EMDR. I had tried to find somebody who lived in New York and I just couldn't, because not every therapist is certified in EMDR. Right. And so you do have to find somebody who's gone through the certification process or the training process. And so I was able to find someone here, and that really led to my liberation. And that's still my therapist today. She has just been extraordinary for me. And at that particular point, I remember just feeling like I had a monkey on my back. It was something, it would just, Julie's death is never going to not be a part of who I am, but it doesn't need to control me. It doesn't need to hold me hostage any longer. And that's what it had been doing, was holding me hostage. I wasn't able to shake the guilt and the shame I had around who I was in that moment, like how I needed to respond to her sickness and her death. I wore that, and so many of my decisions were dictated by that guilt and that shame. And that's no way to live. That is no way to live. You're in bondage. And so working with her allowed me to see that girl who I was then was who I needed to be at that moment. It's how I survived,
Yeah.
And I literally, there are many instances where I could not be here today and I'm here. Yeah. And so I forgave myself. I recognized that the way my sister died was the way she chose to go. I had sadness around not being in the room when she died. It was the middle of the night and we had gone back to our hotel to sleep because we were 2 hours from our home. We're actually in Gainesville, Florida, where I ended up going to college. I was still a junior in high school at the time, but I recognized my sister, the way that she chose to go was so her. She didn't need an audience. She didn't want us because we were there. We didn't want her to go. And so she needed to do it like that. And I recognized angels were in the room. I saw my ancestors. I mean, it was powerful. And so EMDR for me has just been an absolute game changer. I don't do it, every session. I've used it for like extreme traumas, big traumas, like things that are just like, I need to work through this and the talking isn't going to cut it.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Anymore.
Yeah. The talking can only get in so far. Yeah. I found the cognitive piece.
Yeah. The trauma gets stuck in the body. And so for those of you with like big, there's big T's, little T's, and for somebody at a big, an instance might be a big T for this person, but for somebody else, it's a little T and vice versa. And so it's not like all of this classifies as big. It's like whatever it is for you, you have to really be generous with yourself and give yourself so much grace during this process. But yeah, for anyone who's listening who recognizes you're being held hostage by a situation, I don't care how long ago it was or how short ago it was, definitely look into EMDR. It can change your life for the better.
Yeah.
Quickly. It doesn't take long. That's the thing, right, Christine? It's like efficient. That's what
it's very efficient. It's amazing. And the way it was described to me, just for people who aren't necessarily familiar, it's just there's a part of your brain where these traumatic memories and stories live. And it's like you said, trauma gets stuck in your body, and it's like you're still in that fight or flight. You're still in that place. And what EMDR is, it's like a file. It takes the filing system and switches it up. Like it takes those memories and puts it somewhere else in your brain where it's not that intensity of like the moment when it happened. So it's pretty amazing. And like people have to do what works for them. There's so many modalities out there, but I wanted to mention that just because we have that in common. And you would also mention, you had just, seen your therapist earlier. And you mentioned alcohol and how you had, a not so great relationship with alcohol. And so I'm assuming like part of like the numbing out, like that was one of the ways that you did it so that you didn't have to feel.
For sure.
And so you've, had your sobriety. It's almost been, it's been a long time. I remember you announcing it originally,
8+ years.
Yeah. It's like, you're like, I have released alcohol. And it's just interesting to mention it because I had my therapist yesterday, and one of the things that came up is like my relationship with alcohol, and like literally it hadn't really come up. I've been in therapy on and off for like a long time, but it never had really come up. And so, we were talking about that, and we were like, how, how are you using that?
Yeah.
And what is it actually doing for you? And so tell us about that journey to sobriety and sort of that decision point that happened when you said, you know what, this is it.
Yeah, totally. And I'm loving this conversation, PS. And
Yeah.
I'm hoping everyone listening is just like, deeply, and kind of what I hope that people walk away with is just really considering other ways of living.
Yeah.
And that's actually a piece that came up when I was talking to my therapist, like just never want to get stuck or to feel stuck. Like, well, this is just how it is, like, well, is could there be another way? What are some other ways? What are some other alternatives? What are some options? And then if you decide, no, I'm good here, that's fine. But you've really been thoughtful about it. You've been mindful about it instead of just living your life with the default setting. So it was, like I said, the first time I drank alcohol was the first weekend of my freshman year of high school. I went to a high school party, and it was like, oh, this is the game. And I was very into being in the crowd. I wanted to be in the cool crowd. I wanted to be popular. I was like, I will be doing this. Sign me up. And this is the cost of entry? Sure. And so that's what it was. And I grew up in this small beach town in Florida. It was parties every weekend in the woods. You think we'd be partying on the beach, but we never did. I guess
what's up with that?
The cops would come, but if you would go to these random spots in the woods, I'm like, where was I?
Random woods.
What woods? We didn't have cell phones back then. Like I said, the fact that I'm sitting here talking to you right now is just a sheer miracle. So we would go to these parties in the woods, and all the alcohol kegs, wine coolers. Eventually it evolved into like Goldschlager, all the crap, like what was I putting in myself? Right. But over time, yes, it was to fit in. It alleviated social anxiety. Gosh, you just one drink and you're like, I have just the life of this party and all of that. And, at the time I just thought it was fun. It was the way it is. It's what you do. But I didn't drink to excess every time I drank, but when I drank to excess, it was to excess. And, and my body was the type in my brain, and I don't think this is necessarily true for everyone, but I had, I would black out. I'd have like, what did I do? I don't remember anything, but like my body was still going, but my brain had shut down to protect itself because I had just put so many toxins in the body. Alcohol is a toxin. It just is. It's why you're intoxicated. Yep. So I got myself in, a number of situations that would have been dangerous, unhealthy, unhelpful, all the things. And again, by the grace of God, all the angels, like somehow I would be okay, hang over the next day to pay the price, and then maybe like apologizing to people or something for like what I did or what I said. And I don't remember.
I don't remember it.
I don't remember. And that, as I look back, like that's the most terrifying part for me, is like not remembering, because I actually want to remember my life. I want to remember if I was at something and I had a great time, I want to remember that great time because it was great. Like then I can feel the good feelings of it being great. So, but that just kind of followed me through college. I kind of joke that where I went to school, I minored in business, but I also kind of minored in partying and drinking. Like that was just what it was. I don't have regrets. Like I don't live with those regrets, but I have to say now, Christine, like I talk to my kids about these things in ways that I didn't have the conversation with my parents, just like don't drink, but now I talk to them about, well, here's what can happen and here's how it affects you. And because they're going to be exposed to it and they're going to make decisions. Like I'm not naive. Like the last thing
it's more nuanced. You can talk to about the nuances and speak, which your parents and our parents didn't.
Exactly. So I lived it. And, and in New York, like that was the thing, like the companies I worked, like that's what you did. You worked your ass off and then you partied. We had alcohol brought into conference rooms. Thursday and Friday. Thursday and Fun Friday. Bring in the drinks.
Wow. Right.
It was like given to you by your work. and it was just a lot of that. It was a lot of that. And with my conferences, we'd have cocktail hours like that. You're surrounded by it. You are surrounded by it. it's so socially acceptable. Not only is it socially acceptable, it's socially just part of life.
Yeah.
Like, here it
To
is.
the point where if you say you're not drinking, you know,
Like,
around particular
what's
people,
wrong with
it
you?
it is a thing. It is
It's
literally a thing
insane.
where people are afraid to
Yeah.
say that they're not drinking a lot of times
Yes.
because it's like, what?
It's a thing for sure. And so that was definitely, I witnessed all of that. I observed that. But an interesting piece is my dad never drank
Okay.
because his father was an alcoholic.
Okay. Yes.
He saw
Yes.
alcoholism
Yeah.
and what it does, and it destroyed their family.
Yeah. Yeah.
So my dad was like, I'm not touching it, where his siblings actually did, and they became alcoholics and then recovering, you know, they don't drink any longer because sometimes you have to all just be aware of this. It's definitely genetic. And so
Yes.
I knew that. I was like, wait, so like my dad's side of the family, we got this alcohol thing over here. And
Mhm.
so I need to be aware of that. And so yeah, when I was pregnant, I didn't drink. And I remember I loved pregnancy. I was one of those people who loved it. You know, there's a lot of women are like, I hate it. I'm like, I loved it. I felt so healthy. I took so good care of myself. Didn't drink. I was exercising. I was drinking green juice. Like, I was doing all the things. And it was soon after, you know, a year after my daughter was born, it was my third. I just was really deconstructing a lot of this. I was doing a lot of, you know, deep work, healing work, the EMDR, letting shit go. I was doing a lot of work at that time with Gabby Bernstein, like doing some of her trainings. You know, she's very open with her sobriety and listening in new ways. And I think what I want the listeners to take away is really questioning things. Like, so everyone else does this, but do you want to do it?
Mhm.
Like, is it good for you? And so the voice came in. It was really the voice came in and said, I think you're done. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I think I am. I think I'm good. At that point, I wasn't binge drinking anymore. Like, that ship had sailed. I didn't have time when I was a parent. I know
Right.
some moms, they really struggle when they become a mom. Like,
Yeah.
mommy wine culture and drinking culture is huge.
Yeah.
It's huge. And a lot of women struggle there. That was not a struggle for me at all. And shout out to my husband, because he's not a drinker. And so
Okay.
I think I married the right person in that
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
Because if I would have married a partier, it could have gone very, very differently. And I think there was that voice inside me when I met him, and I was like, oh my God, like, that's not gonna be a piece of our relationship. Like, we would go to concerts and he would order water. I
It's
couldn't
like,
believe
what?
it. Like, who orders
Yeah.
water?
Yeah. Right.
Who does that? You go to the bar and order water? I'm like, well, I guess I'll get water too.
Uh,
And then it was like, that started just changing things for me. But the decision, he never made like an official decision. Like, I'm never, you know,
yeah.
but he's just like, oh, I'm not going to drink. And so then, but for me, it was like the voice came in and I said, yeah, I think I'm done. And I just kind of run it as an experiment. Like, I just keep going because I feel better. I feel better. And that's really what guides so much of my decision-making these days, Christine, is how do I feel? How do I feel? And not like the fake feeling, like where I always feel good. I don't always feel good. There's times when I feel like shit. There's times when I feel sad. There's times when I feel like confused. There's times when I feel lots of different emotions that aren't comfortable to feel. But I know I have the capacity to feel everything. I can feel everything. And it's because of the work, because of the therapy, because of the rooms I get myself into and putting myself out there and not just accepting scraps. I know I can have the capacity to feel things, and I have also the capacity to have very challenging conversations and stay in it. And that's actually one of my great gifts. I think sobriety's offered that to me. You know, all the work I've done, my training, just how I stay in the room, my skill as a facilitator, which I believe is like a piece of who you are as a coach, and not everybody is a skilled facilitator. That for me, I believe, is my great zone of genius, is that I am able to sit in very uncomfortable conversations, whether it be personal conversations, some of them happen in my house, okay?
Yeah.
Whether they be happening in a group, you know, of people, clients that you, because I love group work, it's like my favorite. Being able to hold that, be able to see all the different energies that are popping, you know, because you've got multiple people in a room. It's not just you, it's not just them, it's like all the people. It's all the people, it's all the shit they came in with. They all got stuff. And being able to hold all of that, my mind is very clear. And so that's my journey with sobriety. It's been a ride, and I've met so many interesting people along the way as a result. And I have learned too that many are waking up around this and questioning and looking at how their life might be different if they just made some different choices or a bit more conscious
Yeah.
of, I think, and you do this with, your food and what you put into your body in that capacity. I think we should all be looking at like what we're putting into ourselves, and not from a place of judgment, from a place of curiosity, because everyone has different bodies and we need different things. And so really just to wake up and say, when you put this in you, how does it make you feel? How does it impact your life? How does it impact your energy? How does it impact your decisions and how you can relate to people? That right there will change your life, and it will be quick.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like, has there been anything that specifically you could point to or notice that, like, specifically with your business, just as a business woman and a marketer and someone who does launches and works with clients and deals with relationships, like, how has this area of your life, which, is a lot of it is like your personal life where you've done this work and things, like, how has that most influenced sort of how you show up for your clients or how you show up in your business? And
I love that question. So I think for me, I have this, we alluded to it a bit earlier with my decision making, but I am just able to sift through all the noise. You know how much noise there is online? It's like,
so
it's
much.
like a cacophony.
Yeah.
It's like a circus times a million.
Yeah.
A lot. Going into the circus. What's happening in the circus? Oh, everyone's talking about threads. Everyone's I was like, what's
Threads is the thing that blew up last night. All of a sudden, that's what I'm like, where's this?
I never liked Twitter.
I was like, I didn't even go to the website. I was like,
I had a good time. Okay. I was like, and nothing against it. If you want to get on, it's for you. Go for it. I just kind of sit where I sit and I recognize I don't need to do it like everybody else.
Yeah.
I don't need to participate in all of these things. I'm going to participate what I'm participating in, and I'm going to reserve my energy for what I am here to do.
Yeah.
For what I'm here to do. I am done comparing myself to people with different lives, aka that's everybody. And different dreams and different missions. We've all been sent here for a reason. My reason is different than Christine's reason, is different than every single person who's tuning in right now. So why am I comparing you to me? It's stupid. It's a waste. You are like literally just wasting this precious life. And so I'm not going to do that. And so these choices I've made, this healing journey I've been on, being super intentional about, what I put in me, what I have around me, where I live, like who's in my life, it allows me to be so discerning. And, it's like why you mentioned the company, this large client of mine that I have, Chief, I'm so grateful to be working with them, a couple years back, just recognizing I'm ready for this next iteration of the work. There's pieces I'm going to keep, and I'm ready to have something else that's in this space to work alongside, my skill set and these other elements of my core business that I love and I want to continue pursuing. And so with that, I, out of that comfort zone, getting myself into this conversation with this very large company. And as a result, doing tremendous work. I think that's where I mentioned the facilitating piece, my facilitation skills have grown astronomically. Being involved with this organization, we get a tremendous amount of training. I have clients from, I just blow me away. I've done so much work with entrepreneurs, and I still have such a heart for entrepreneurs, especially coaches and consultants and those of us in the healing space, the transformation space, like love, because I get it. But being able to do some work with these, CEOs, CMOs, COs, like the C-suite, VPs, SVPs, who have just like for decades committed themselves to that path and have, the scars to show from the battles they've been involved in, and knowing the work I do there has such a large ripple effect because they're working at these, very, very important, big companies, and knowing that they're touching so many customers, so many team members, their personal life, that has brought me a tremendous amount of joy and pleasure. And I think there's just such a good feeling that comes when you know with every fiber of your being that you are using your talents.
Yeah.
They're being deployed for the ultimate. And I think for me, it's like recognizing that some of my dreams have changed through the years. Some of the ways I've been wanting to apply my energy has changed. Stuff that I was like totally into 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I just don't care about anymore.
Yeah.
I literally don't care.
Yeah.
And I can't make myself care.
Right.
That's the thing.
Right.
Yes.
You
get it, Christine. I'm like, if I don't care, I don't care.
Yeah. I was just saying that's my therapist yesterday, because we're talking a lot about talk about transition. Like I'm in this major transition, trying to figure out where I'm, and we were talking about that. It's just like, it's just, yeah. I just feel like
that's the neat part.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And, and I'm so glad you're open to talk about all of this and your journey and your sobriety. And the other thing, like we could talk for hours, but like I just want to note that like you just mentioned before we started recording that you are moving into this different phase, because Jenny has 3 kids that she's been homeschooling like for years now. And what's happening in a few months? This is
time. I know when this will be getting published, but yeah, in the fall of 2016, Ultimate Curveball, my oldest son was like, yeah, I'm not going to school anymore. I'm going to be homeschooling.
Yeah.
And we're like, no, let's go look at other schools. There's another school that's better. It's like, these are nice, but I will be homeschooled. And there was no deviation from that. And I think for me, parenting for sure has been the ultimate surrender. There's been other elements where you just realize I gotta surrender right now. It's like, my will is not happening. I've got to surrender to what is. And so, I've been on this homeschooling journey eventually with all 3 of my kids for a long, long time, since fall of 2016, as I mentioned. And all 3 are going to be in in-person school in the fall. I'm like, I don't want to jinx it. Like, okay, it's happening. No, but it's happening. Everyone's ready. It's like, and I'm so grateful. That time was just extraordinary. It was. And I thought when I was in it, and it was hard. And it was hard. It was so hard. It was wonderful. And it was hard. And I remember just thinking, I'm never going to regret this, because we had this time. We had this time together to like build them up, to make them strong from the inside out. And that's not a knock on schools. It was just for us. That's what was required. That was the best approach. And certainly it came in handy during COVID when everyone's flipping out.
Sure.
Like, we've been doing this.
We got this. I remember that Jenny. I'm like, this is an old hat for Jenny.
Yeah, and I was leading talks for companies on homeschooling and work balance, which was the ultimate trip, because at the beginning I was like, I can't tell anyone I'm doing this because And I was like, so now P.S. I'm talking to they hired me to talk about this now. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, that was funny. So they'll be in in-person school, and they're ready. I'm thrilled. My middle one already went in a couple months back. He was ready, and he's loving it. My oldest will be in high school. My middle's going to be middle school. My daughter's in elementary. They'll all be in 3 different schools, of course. And I think that's the story, is just life is wild. And, for me too, I'll just be real. It's with the work piece. I have chunks of time that I can dedicate it to work, and it's not always the same every day. I've had to be really nimble and really, that was another piece too, is looking like, what can I do that's just solid? I like the work. I want to invest more in the work. There was a period where I was like, I was doing more marketing than actual work. Not that marketing isn't work. No, but that happens from the work, from getting in a room with the clients, especially the group programs, the retreats. You've been to many of mine. It's like, I could do that all the time, but you can't do all the time because you also do the marketing. Yeah. And so there were times when the scales were too tipped, where I felt like all I was doing was marketing. Okay. Yes, I've been there. The launch and the thing, all the things, 17-part thing that led here, and the Facebook ads and the funnel and the thing and the web. I was like, when are we doing the work? Right. Okay. I just doing all this. Yeah. I just doing all this. That's not what I want to be doing. No. That's not what I want to be doing. I'll do some, but I don't want that to be the majority of what I do. I'm just not. And I love people who can do that. That's fabulous. Good for you. that's not why I'm here. That's not why I'm here. So I needed to kind of like reverse engineer, how could there be more focus on the work that I'm personally here to do? And so I have that now. I have, like work that just comes to me. I have contracts that just come to me. I have clients that just, here they are. And that feels extraordinary. I've been able to free up my creative energies for what I really want to be doing, and not feel like every day it's this hustle and back on the, what is that? The hamster wheel. That's how I felt. That's how I felt when I was in corporate. It's like, why am I recreating that here? That's ridiculous. But that's coming back to my little notes right here. When we don't do the work, we end up in the same place. And so are you in the same place? It may look different on the outside, but you're still doing the same thing. That's what you have to look for. And it's so easy to get there. I mean, I'd say the vast majority of the world's there. But are you willing to be different? I say it to my kids all the time. I was like, so who cares if all those people are doing that? You don't have to do that.
Well, it's like you said, this discernment, like you, and it's brave, also to be like, I'm not doing what I don't want to do anymore, because like, I mean, and I get that, because the marketing can become the thing, like that's all you're doing. And I think that what, a lot of people in my audience relate to that you just said is like, it's the work. Like, let's put the focus back on the work. Like, that's what really is. I mean, yes, you need to market, you need to get clients, you need to whatever, but like the actual work with your clients.
Yes.
That's what
where you
it's,
get
that's
the
the
juice.
transformation.
That's where you get the juice. And if you're not getting the juice from that, then you're not doing the right work. It's just change it. Either change your clients, change your focus, change the way that you work. There's all those changes that you can make. And I think that's an important conversation too. I've made a lot of those evolutions through the years myself. Some of it lifestyle based, just like you feel like you've graduated out of doing it this particular way and you need to go into this new way of working, style of working, to really reflect your strengths and just what makes you feel alive. But I think where our industry kind of went off the rails was when it was just all marketing all the time.
Marketing.
I think everyone has to be mindful of that, because there's still a lot of that's out there.
There is. Yeah. And like I said, you gotta get yourself out there, but like, it's just funny because like I've changed so much in terms of like what I feel like I need to do and have to do and should do. And that's why I was mentioning, my therapist and I were talking about it, and the conversation was, we were talking about like, what's next for me in business and like, what's it look like and how can we get back into a routine? And she said something, I don't even remember what it was, but it was just like, well, you could blah, 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 blah. And I was just like, no, I was just like, I refuse to do that anymore. I don't like it. Whereas, a few years ago, I would have been like, well, I guess I got to do that,
Right.
So that's a big deal. Well, Jenny, I could talk to you all day. I mean, like, oh my God. And thank you for doing this. I think this is a really great conversation because, it is about business. It is about getting out there. And this podcast talks a lot about the practical stuff, but like, there's always the, what are you doing working on yourself? What are you doing mental health wise? What are you doing to make yourself feel good in your body, as you've mentioned so many times? And I just agree, like it's huge. Where can people find out more about you, Jenny? How can they connect with you? And I think you have something also to share with our peeps, a free resource. So let us know about that.
Yeah. And thank you again for having me. I'm so glad we got to do this.
I would too.
Juicy and we'd go someplace really interesting, and we did.
Yes.
So jennyfenig.com is my home base. I am most present on Facebook and Instagram. If you follow me on Facebook, just my literally personal page, Jenny Amen Fenig. That's another thing I realized is like, this business page is so boring.
I know. Like nothing's going on
but
there.
it's not.
Yeah,
so if you want to hook up with me on
nothing's
Facebook,
going on there.
Jenny, it's like all the changes. Yeah. It was funny, speaking of Allie Brown, she literally canceled her business. It's gone. She doesn't even have a business Facebook
Really?
page.
I didn't know that.
Like, I am out.
Oh, I'm done.
Yeah. And so I think that's the piece too, is where do you get the energy from? Where's the energy? If you're like, why am I here? This is stupid. Then listen to that. So Jenny Amen Fenig is Amen is my maiden name. Find me there, find me on Instagram. And then my free, beautiful offer to you, my gift, my leave behind is, I mentioned a big piece of this was homeschooling my kids for all these years. And even over and above that was just really recognizing, like, where do you get the biggest bang from your buck. Like if you put your energy someplace, what do you get in return? And so I've really become a master of that, of looking at time, of looking at energy, of looking at what are the projects that are best for you in terms of what kind of money you need back, what kind of rewards do you want from a satisfaction standpoint, all of it. And so I created this template. You can get it at reclaimtimenow.com. And it's really about, you know, not doing the whole overwork, overwhelm, just 24/7ness that I feel is still rampant in this space, and looking at how you can create a schedule with your values, desires, and vision always at the forefront. And also looking at how to redesign this each season. I mean, I'm very much into seasonal, cyclical living.
Yes.
My summer is going to look super different from my fall, from my winter, and from my spring.
Yeah.
And when you work with that, you find yourself so in tune with nature, and you just feel better. Because when you get in tune with nature, you're in tune with the rhythm of the universe, and that becomes your superpower.
Yeah. And the moon cycles.
All of it. All of it. Yeah, totally. So that's we didn't even get into that, but that's been a big piece of my evolution as well. And when you recognize, I think that happened for you too, Christine, moving to Florida, which I was like, you need to go someplace warm, and you did. Yeah. You have to be in the right place. And
Jenny's like, come on.
I was like, please, you're going to move farther from where I live, like now, but you literally are living in the town that I was born in, which is why
it's amazing.
I knew. I was like, you need warm. Go.
Yeah. Environment is everything. Yeah.
It is. So yeah, that's a lot of what I do in my work. So reclaimtimenow.com. Y'all can go grab it.
Awesome.
Get in touch and tag Christine in this episode, tag me, let us know like what you took away. I think that's a great gift, like, right? Just to kind of hear what landed, what resonated, you know, what you found helpful. That would be really cool.
Yeah, please do. We want to hear from you, and having this conversation is hopefully opening up some things for other people listening to this. And, you know, even if it's just a new way of thinking, like, is that really working for me anymore? No, it's not. What am I going to do about that? You know, like,
totally.
Just sometimes we need to hear it.
And maybe Christine and I might have like some fun thing, right, Christine?
Oh, we will. Yeah. We've got some things coming.
Like, come hang out with us sometime.
Yeah,
we take this deeper.
Yeah, no. We got like retreats and things that we're talking about. So stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
Yeah. Well, Jenny, thank you so much, and for your honesty and openness always. It's such a beautiful thing. So thank you for sharing that with our people.
Yay. Thanks, Christine.
All right, everyone. Yeah, and we will put the link to Jenny's gift if you want to grab it, because it's actually an actionable, like, it sounds freaking amazing. Like, I'm gonna go download it. So thank you for sharing that as well. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in, and we will talk to you soon.